And welcome back to the Sideline Chat podcast. And we're now here to look at your Betfred Super League round 24-25 debrief. Now, what did we learn from that round 24? 1 week out from the playoffs. What did we learn looking back over last week's action?
Well, that it's still all to play for the top 6 playoffs, and that upsets can still occur. And near upsets can still occur.
Well, you say top 6, and I'll tell you who it hasn't started off well for. The Leeds Rhinos going down to St Helens, 40 points to 6.
Look, Leeds had to win this game, or be very, very close to winning it. More like they had to win it. But coming up against St Helens, it was always going to be a tough task, and a tough task it certainly was.
They were physically outplayed through the middle of the field. They could not withstand the Saints' forward pack in any shape.
Well, not only the forward pack, but out wide as well. They could not stop them from scoring tries here, there, everywhere.
Yeah, it was just an onslaught. Or Leeds just didn't know what to do. I mean, again, with Brad Dwyer, no real shape to the attack. Just Dwyer gets in from dummy half, and he gives Leeds the only points of the match for them.
Look, St Helens should have been expecting that as well. Like, Dwyer's done that numerous occasions so far this season.
I think that's practically how most of his tries have been scored. He just jumps out of dummy half, and he just takes the effect, and so on. That's basically his bread and butter right there.
It certainly is, and it definitely caught St Helens off guard, and it has caught other teams off guard as well. But, look, they just weren't up to scratch, and it really puts a big dent in their playoffs chances.
Well, it puts their playoffs hopes in jeopardy. Meanwhile, Saints, they've needed a bounce back after going down to the Catalan Dragons at Magic Weekend in that golden point drop goal circumstances off the boot of James Maloney, and respond they have.
Yeah, certainly. They were going to respond very quickly. St Helens, they're just been too classy yet again all year long.
And for me, Alex Walmsley. How good is Alex Walmsley? Just how many games do you think he has played and St Helens have played well?
Pretty much every single game he has played.
And he was at it again, the big fella. One try assist, 275 running meters, and 13 tackle breaks for a front rower.
That is unbelievable, especially the 275 run meters.
He literally got Saints on the front foot. Every time he got into the clear, just thinking, oh shit, is he going to literally go to length of the field to score? Is he just looking for a support player? I mean, that's all it was. It was just, you were just waiting to see if someone was going to back Alex Walmsley up.
Well, yeah, that's what we were waiting for. And when he did break through that line, I was hoping he would have gone through and scored the length of the field, but he wasn't quite there. But Makinson was there in support to finish off that effort, though.
It was just a major bounce back and confidence booster for the Saints, and it's trying to keep hold of second place because the league leaders' shield is, of course, now firmly out of the question.
Yes.
As for Leeds, they need to get a win in the final game of the season, and we will touch on to that shortly. But for now, not good, especially when you have 8 tries running against you.
Yeah, it was quite a few. Let's just say that
7 tries. As I'll correct the record there, 7 tries run in by the Saints.
Yeah, not good at all.
All right. It's now from the action from the Friday clashes. The Warrington Wolves getting up over Salford, 20 points to 19.
Yeah, when I saw this result, I thought, wow, how did Salford almost beat Warrington?
I have no idea how Salford got off to that fast a start. I think that is absolutely crazy. The start that they got off to with Kensio's first runaway try.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And I thought, oh, here we go, a massive upset on the cards. And it looked like it certainly was going to be, especially this late in the season as well.
they made Warrington pay early, and pay early the Wolves did.
Yes. But
It-
after CO went over first, Warrington went over 3 tries to pull out a lead, but then Salford ended up clawing the way back just.
And considering the fact that they might have been resting players as well. Oh, I mean, as I'm reading this, if I'm reading this, probably not the same lineup as it stands, because you never know. You look at the Super League website, they're not necessarily going to have the same lineup that you see on the screen than it is up on the website. It gets a little bit funny, even after the game's long gone.
It does a little bit. For some unknown reason.
It just happens. But anyway, besides the point, Warrington, they couldn't afford to lose this game. And just for the sake of momentum ahead of the playoffs.
That is very true. And they could have almost, it nearly did happen. They almost did lose that match. But George Williams, so reliable.
George Williams. How well has he played for Warrington since he came back from the Canberra Raiders?
He has played superb. He has basically carried his form from the Raiders across to Warrington, and he's never looked like he was going to make an error.
Well, put it this way. He didn't leave Canberra on the best of notes, really. But
no.
And since coming back to the UK, and of course, everyone was the safe bet that he was going to sign up with the Wigan Warriors once more and reunite with John Bateman. But then to be revealed in the blue and primrose of Warrington, carrying the same number Andrew Johns carried when he played those free game cameo for the Wire back in 2005. I think that was a surprise to everyone.
It certainly was a surprise. But he's gone there, linked up with Gareth Wood very, very well. One of the best combinations in the league.
I wouldn't say the best, but it's definitely been
one of the best. Not the best, one of the best.
It's definitely been a very good partnership, and it definitely indicates where Blake Austin fits in the equation when it basically is, you're not going to stay here. You're out.
No, exactly.
I'm actually going to track back to when George Williams first rocked up at Warrington and see how they went since that point. It's probably not available up on the Rugby League project yet, which is where we get half of the sources from.
Look, I think they've only had maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 losses since he's been there, but he's won the majority of his games since he's gone back over to England and playing for Warrington. It's been a good record.
The second drop goal with 2 minutes of golden point extra time underway. How important is it to ice these moments?
Well, heading into the playoffs, it's very, very important to ice these games because it could pay the difference come playoffs time. It's either it's going to make you go deeper into playoffs or make you drop out of the playoffs there and then.
Or reach Old Trafford altogether. As for Salford, I don't think, I would have thought everyone would have written them off for this clash. And they were almost had egg on the face. But I found this part interesting here. Just after that loss, and with one game left of the season, they're lucky that they're still going to be playing Super League next year. But they have announced a strategic partnership with the Ipswich Jets in the Queensland Cup. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Look, I only saw it obviously the other day. It caught me off by surprise too, but it's an interesting partnership, like one from a team from the Northern Hemisphere linking up with a Queensland Cup team here in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's interesting, and hopefully it pays out well for them.
Well, according to Salford's Director of Rugby and Operations, Ian Bless, he says that this partnership will give the Red Devils added elements to our newly designed player pathway and give our young players the chance to experience rugby league in Australia, whilst also being looked after by an extremely forward-thinking and player-caring club, of course, that being in the Ipswich Jets. This isn't the first UK-Australian Rugby League collaboration. Of course, a couple of years back, it was known that the Canberra Raiders and the Huddersfield Giants had a similar arrangement, but we haven't heard much about that for some time, really. And I think this is probably the first time in about 2 to 3 years we've actually heard something along this line.
Yeah, it has been a while. Like you said, we haven't heard much on the Raiders Huddersfield link up, but hopefully this one goes all right. And who knows, we might see more Aussies over in the UK.
I think it would work both ways. I think you're looking at development pathways. As they're trying to think of it as a win-win situation, because if you look at it in Ipswich's perspective, they'll be looking to get their first team in the reserve grade, try and get them ready to prepare them for the NRL, and they would see they suddenly have a partnership with Salford, which can give them that first team experience and prepare them for life in first grade rugby league. So they get over there, they get them up amongst that rich history that the UK rugby league scene has to offer. Then they come back home, and it's when it comes time for an NRL club to take a look, going to be like, okay, this kid's actually he garnered a fair bit of playing experience and some match time. We'll see how we go and take the chance on it.
Yeah, so like I said, see more Aussies over in the UK, but with this link up, you could also see more, basically what you just said, more UK players over in Australia, possibly.
It works both ways.
Yeah, and I hope that happens. We see more Englishmen come out and play in the NRL.
And not wearing the lime green with Canberra.
Yes.
More like Luke Thompson or Tom Burgess.
Something along those lines, yes. No, it'll be good. Good for both comps.
We'll see how that development goes in the future. Now, over to the MKM Stadium in Hull for a very unusual scoreline. The Wigan Warriors getting up over the Black and Whites 10-0.
Yeah, it was a very low scoring game, and it all came in the second half, believe it or not.
So how do we diagnose Hull FC from putting on a strong 40 minutes defensively to then allowing the next 20 minutes for Wigan to run in 2 tries, and that's it?
I honestly don't know. Maybe it was only for the 50, I think the 52nd minute of the match, the first points were scored. I was going to say fatigue, but yeah, it kind of could be in a factor as well. But I honestly don't know. Maybe a little bit of pressure started getting to him about, all right, we're still 0-0, and we need to try and get some points on the board. Or it could have been a very physical and demanding game.
The chip kick from Jackson Hastings, I'm trying to remember whether it was for, I'm pretty sure, no, it would have been in Zach Hardaker, but that chip kick, how about that for room service?
It very was good room service, and it paid off very, very well indeed.
Of course, Zach Hardaker ended up being my standout player for this game. 1 try, 131 running meters, 5 tackle breaks, 1 offload, and 1 from 2 goals converted. So he had practically half of the points Wigan scored was either Hardaker going down for a 4-pointer or off Hardaker's boot.
Yeah, basically.
And then, of course, Jake Bibby going over in the corner.
Yeah, I was going to say the only other contributor is Jake Bibby. And Hull looked like they were going to score once, but they were somehow held up. That was an unbelievable defensive effort there by Wigan to hold up Hull.
It's been an up and down season for the Wigan Warriors. I mean, injuries were apparent, but poor form. I just wonder, is this a result that they do need at this point in time? I'm with the playoffs, literally from the time we're recording this on Thursday afternoon, 1 week away, with a game in front of them at the moment.
Well, look, it's a result that Wigan needed, but it's a result that Hull FC didn't need.
Well, Hull couldn't make the top 6 playoffs after the loss at the Magic weekend, so they were out of the running anyway. For Brett Hodgson now, the priority for Hull FC is to finish the season out on a high, because they were in a position to finish inside the top 6 in his first year as a first-grade coach, and still plagued by the same problems that led to Lee Radford's sacking back last year before the lockdowns.
So Hull FC aren't even mathematically a chance if results go their way?
No, they're not a chance. They're out of the running.
Right. So Wigan is a result that has helped them stay in the top six and
They will finish fourth. No questions about it. They will finish fourth, I think.
They can't finish third or anything.
No, Warrington's locked third away. At the moment, they're both locked in for the elimination games in the first week of the playoffs, and as well, Catalan and St. Helens are both going to put their feet up for the semi-final showdowns.
Yeah. So Wigan are in the top six. It's just a matter of trying to gain momentum going into the playoffs, which is exactly what happened in this match.
And it will heavily depend on who makes it through and who finishes fifth for the Wigan Warriors to contend with.
Yes. It's gonna be interesting to see how the final ladder in the top six is going to look like, especially those last couple of positions, the fifth and sixth.
Fifth and sixth and there is 2 games over the weekend that will heavily influence the outcome of these results.
Yes.
Of who will play in the playoffs. I mean, Catalan, St. Helens, Warrington, count them in. Wigan as well. And then it's just Castleford, Leeds, and Hull KR that are the only teams undecided thus far.
Yes, it's going to be very, very interesting indeed.
Now, speaking of the Catalan Dragons, a little bit of a shock upset, although they might have been strategically resting players ahead of the playoffs. But they went down to the Huddersfield Giants, 30 points to 18, after racing out to an 18-0 lead.
Yeah, well, it's usually the other way around. Usually, Catalans come back from being down by a fair margin, not going out to a fair margin and then losing, or they get out to a fair margin and keep pulling away. But this was a massive upset. But like you said, they're probably just strategically resting players for the playoffs.
Well, considering that there was no Sam Tompkins at fullback, there was no Michael McAlorum at dummy half, Cesar Rouge was actually starting at dummy half, even though he is a half by trade. No Fuad Yaha, no Samisoni Langi, no Dean Varde in this game. And a very different looking backline with Romain Franco in Yaha's position, and then your centres Mathieu Laguerre and Matt Whitley, who bagged a double for Steve McNamara's side.
Yeah, so he did really well playing that centre that doesn't usually play there, but he filled in the spot quite well and made good use of it.
They definitely did at Catalan, of course, giving starts also to Corentin Lecam, as well as giving opportunities for Mathieu Cozar and Robin Bruchon off the bench as well, just really opening up that French Rugby League development right there.
It certainly did. I said I'll give in some of the younger players an opportunity to have a bit of a run when they've got the league leadership wrapped up, so they can afford to do stuff like this, which is the beauty of wrapping up the league leadership with a couple of rounds to spare.
As for Huddersfield, they've been flops. There's no kind words about it, but I think they have unearthed some some gem of a players, as pardon the expression, just trying to think of the right words in my head, but they have found some absolute diamonds amongst this playing squad. Will Price, for me, is one of these gems, even though he did come off the bench, but Ollie Russell, I have to give the knock to who is still there in the halves in the absence of the experienced Aidan Caesar and playing alongside Jack Cogger, brought over from the NRL. But Oliver Russell in focus, 96 run meters, 1 try assist, 2 tackle breaks, and 5 from 5 goals converted in that comeback performance.
Yeah, he had a brilliant other game, and he's got a big future ahead of him, does Oliver Russell. I'll also tell you who else has got a big future ahead of him besides Will Price is Ashel Bott.
Ollie Ashel Bott, that name keeps popping up. It's hard to keep track of him where he's ended up. I mean, 1 minute he's at Widnes, the next minute he's at London, and then before you even blink, he ends up at the Huddersfield Giants. I've lost track of where he's been since I first heard of his name burst onto the scene.
He's been a bit of a journeyman so far, and I think he might have found his home here at Huddersfield.
Well, I think it'll be interesting for Ian Watson how he looks at his squad going forward, because Aidan Caesar will leave to join the Leeds Rhinos for 2022. He'll be in need of a half. He's got Price, he's got Russell, and he's got Cogger, so he's now going to have to decide which one of those he wants to throw in. Well, along with the unconfirmed reports that Tui Lolohea could be moving from Salford to link up with his former mentor. Or is there going to be congestion in the halves at Huddersfield with potentially Lolohea's arrival?
There could potentially will be. However, Ian Watson decides to choose the halves, we'll have to wait and see.
And it's the question at fullback as well, depending on the fitness, as it always does, as with Ash Golding. And then you look at the backs, Cudjoe, Latelli, Jake Wardle. Who's going to fit into the centres at the moment with Jermaine McGilvery on one side and losing Darnell McIntosh to Hollow C for the 2022 campaign?
Yeah, there's still a lot of pieces that need to fall into place for the Giants for next season, but they'll have it all sorted out. And pre-season will be definitely determined to see if that makes the final decision or not.
I would be putting Ian Watson under the microscope for this game. I think we look at coaches that have just moved to the first year of a new contract and we're already calling for heads. I think Kevin Walters, we're calling for his head. Trent Barrett calling for his head as well, if you look at it from the NRL. I think John Duffy, many would have been calling for his head after Lee lost all its opening fixtures. And that did happen. Of course, Chris Chester had been under pressure for years after 2018 and a very performing 2 years after that. So no surprise. Who do you think will be the next Super League coach under pressure?
Look, it's very hard to tell. You could say anyone kind of in the bottom half of the table. So like maybe your Wakefield or your Salford or your Huddersfield coach, or maybe not so much Huddersfield, probably your more Wakefield or Salford, because we know what's happened to the Centurions. So I'd say either Wakefield or Salford.
So you don't see Richard Marshall lasting out all of 2022 going forward?
Look, I don't know. I hope he does, but it's just one of those two clubs I think.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see. And who will join them as the 12th team in the Betfred Super League. We'll talk more about that shortly. But for now, we've got more round 24 fixtures and the newly rebranded Hull KR downing the Castleford Tigers 26-19 at the Hull College Craven Park to claim victory in the Roger Millwood Trophy match.
Yeah, I thought by looking at the Super League website, I thought the logo was slightly different, but that explains why then. A good win over Castleford, especially I think it was a first half field goal. First half
drop goal. How many times have we seen a first half drop goal turn into a full-time defeat?
Multiple times, whether it's over in Super League, over here in NRL.
It's universal. Don't kick a first half field goal and you win the game after that. You do it, you're just throwing it away.
Yeah, exactly. And look, it's happened again, really.
It has happened again, and Castleford needed the win here. There is a lot of congestion for the top six, and you can't have 3 teams fit into 2. You simply can't.
No, you simply can't.
As for Hull KR, I've got to say, they did very well to overcome adversity after losing Ryan Hall, for one, I can remember off the top of my head. And then they have Greg Minikin go down as well?
I think so, which is a bit of a shame.
So they were down to about 16 or 15 men at one stage in the game with the HIAs and the injury is going on. But I'll tell you who stood up for the Robins, as they like to be known. They are no longer like being referred to as Hull Kingston Rovers, thanks to their rebrand ahead of their 140th anniversary celebrations. 140 years.
Wow.
But Mikey Lewis, one of the halves, brought in and developed alongside Jordan Abdul, who did return for this game for Hull KR, 2 tries, 121 running meters, and 5 tackle breaks in that dominant second half display from Hull KR.
It definitely was dominant. And it proved to show that Castle are yet again inconsistent.
They can't afford this inconsistency at the business end of the year. Darryl Powell must be pulling his hair out at the moment at the Tigers' inconsistent performances. A strong Magic performance against Salford, and mind you, it was a performance at Magic against Salford. But if we look at the record, let's take this into perspective for the Casper Tigers right now, dating all the way back to the beginning of August. They get down 34-16 at the hands of Huddersfield before bouncing back for three good wins against Leeds, St Helens, and Wakefield Trinity at the Jungle during Rivals round. Well, 4 if you include Hull FC's downturn after their derby performance. But since then, and the last 3 results are nilling against Wigan, beating Salford at Magic Weekend, which is one of the worst sides all year, and then another bad display at the Hull College Craven Park against Hull KR. You just can't afford these inconsistent performances.
No, you certainly can't, especially in a comp so tight like the Super League. Talking about coaches being under pressure, Castleford's coach could be under pressure too, maybe.
Well, Darryl Powell has already announced he's departing to the Warrington Wolves, and the pressure he will be under, unlike others, will be to try and send Castleford out with some silverware. At the moment, the Tigers are running 6th, heading into this final regular season game, with every club from 5th to 7th desperate to be 5th and 6th.
Most certainly, but even the incoming coach will maybe slightly under pressure as well, like trying to get some momentum going and be more
Lee
consistent.
Radford is coming in to take over Castleford after getting sacked by Hull FC on live television, which is not exactly professional, but hey, Adam Pearson can do what he wants as the chairman of the club.
Yep.
I think Lee Radford will come back a better coach after having a year and a bit out of the game, just step back, review everything that went wrong, and then try and rectify that to see how it can go right.
Yeah. And look, I hope they go well and he can fix up the inconsistency that Castle have had this season.
It's definitely inconsistency. If he can get them playing consistent, we all know how well he did with Hull FC during his tenure, which included a couple of semi-finals appearances and 2 Challenge Cup wins.
Yep, most certainly he did.
And finally, another surprising result, the Lee Centurions bagging their 2nd win of the season and potentially could be their last against Wakefield, 26 points to 18 to round out round 24.
Okay, as I mentioned last week, I said I was going to tip Lee, just sort of fun of it, like we both tipped the Bulldogs in NRL, just for fun of it. And it happened to be correct yet again. So maybe the fun tips are the way to go nowadays.
I wouldn't necessarily, that's the best way to do it. But look, Lee have not had the rub of the green in anything all year long. And for Wakefield to surrender an 18-10 lead at halftime, to then lose the game 26 to 18 with once again, Adam Sidlow just seems to be able to find his way onto the Centurions try scorers sheet.
Yeah.
Most weeks,
yes, he has. And he's been, like I'd say, one of the go-to players to score points this season.
That is definitely true. And another man that there has been a real go-to and a shining light in this Lee Centurions campaign, and of disappointment and misery, Ryan Briley. Fullback for Lee, 3 tries, 111 running meters, 3 tackle breaks. Okay, what is this obsession with 3 and triple digits, and 3 from 5 goals converted?
Yeah, now he had an outstanding game for the Centurions, and he's been, like you said, one of the shining lights for that side this season, and he's shown again why he is.
It's only unfortunate that he won't be staying at the Lee Sports Village next year, because he's already signed up a deal to go to Salford for the 2022 campaign. And Richard Marshall obviously seeing something that he wants to take in the Scottish fullback and develop a little bit further.
Well, he most certainly have to be seeing something. But this performance has definitely got Salford fans looking, being a bit excited for next season.
Well, the recruitment drive is really ramping up at the AJ Bell Stadium at Salford. If they stay there, of course, Salford could still be homeless at this point unless they make the move over to Sales, was it?
I think so. I believe so.
Yeah, the Sales Sharks, I think it was.
Something along those lines. But yeah, whether or not to say AJ Bell, we have to wait and see until an official announcement is made.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. As for Wakefield, they threw all their punches up in the first half and they just didn't stand up in the second.
No, they didn't. And this is where Lee definitely capitalised on what Lee's been doing all year. They sometimes start off well and then just die down in the rest of the game. But they actually came back in the second half of the match and won for the final time at their home ground in the Super League before getting relegated.
Yeah, it's at least they have something to cheer about, just like Canterbury fans everywhere. They're just one final win to cheer about before the year is over.
Yeah, no, it's good to see. It's sad that also we know that Centurions are go down to the Championship, but it's good to see that they got their second win of the season and in front of their home fans.
Yeah, not everyone gets that luxury.
No.
Now, moving on, we've got round 25, the final round before the playoff series begin, and the Sky Sports cameras will be at the Menderhose Jungle to cover the Castleford Tigers up against the Warrington Wolves. How big a game for Castleford is this, especially now, off the back that Michael Shenton has confirmed he will be playing his last game for Cass as he announced his retirement at the end of the 2021 season.
This is a big must win for Castleford to make the playoffs, with also results still needing to go their way.
It is. It exactly is at the moment. They currently sit an 11-11 record, 50% and win record overall. And a win for them will move them to 52.17% win percentage, enough to get inside the top six, provided that Hull KR beat the Leeds Rhino. But they have to go up against the Warrington Wolves, and Tom Lynham is back in the side for Steve Price once again. And they met a couple of times. In round one, Warrington got upstaged by Castleford at the Challenge Cup semi-finals. Castleford again beat the Warrington Wolves. It currently stands 2-1 in favour of Darryl Powell's men. What do Warrington need to do well to prevent Castleford from causing an upset?
Attack really well, find weak parts in Castleford's defence and execute it, and target key players in the key areas where the weaknesses are.
Yeah, that would have to be the case right there. But the way Gareth Widdop and George Williams are playing, it is essentially easier said than done.
Most certainly. They've been playing exceptional this season. And look, will Castleford be inconsistent yet again? We just don't know.
Well, they need the win and 2 results to go their way. It's going to be a big ask on top of the coach's last home game of the season, as well as their captain's last home game. Is there a danger that they could be overawed by all the raw emotion that is going on at Weldon Road? And are Warrington capable of causing some heartache?
Well, Warrington are, you have to look over they've been playing all season long. They are capable of causing heartache, but Castleford would want to send out their captain and coach on a high note of playing the last home game in front of their home crowd, and also to try and get some silverware come the grand final at Old Trafford.
Well, Warrington are still without Darryl Clark and Danny Walker, and their first choice dummy half, I believe, from last week against Salford, Mac Davis, had also been ruled out for the rest of the season. So it's not looking good for Steve Price's side squad-wise either. but he's got no choice at this point. Look, if Warrington's left edge can get going and George Williams can find some space around the middle of the field, I think they can tear Castleford a new one through the middle. I'm going to say Warrington win this 1-12.
Just what I could see that Warrington can easily beat Castleford 13 plus, but I would like to see Castleford send out their coach and their captain there on a high in front of the home ground for the last time. I'm going to say Castleford 1-12.
Well, it's going to be a very nervous 24-hour wait because the next game that we'll be covering on Saturday, once again in front of the Sky Sports cameras, this is the do or die qualifier right here between the Leeds Rhinos and Hull KR at Emerald Headingley Stadium, with the news that both Robert Louis and Conrad Hurrell could both be back for Leeds in this do or die clash.
Now they will be very, very big boosts heading into this, like you said, do or die clash. Very big boosts.
It's unfortunate. The bad news for the Robins is that there will be no Ryan Hall and there is no Greg Minikin for Hull KR. So that's two of their best try-scoring weapons. Well, Ryan Hall, really. But losing one of your more powerful wingers, that's not good for Tony Smith.
No. Considering like it's a do or die clash, it's not good. They need to have full strength and the most prolific try scorer in their squad to be there playing to get points for your team.
It is a big ask for Hull KR, and they have done very well all year. I would definitely say much better than last year if we reflect on where they were 12 months ago, at the bottom of the 11-team competition following Toronto's withdrawal. But they still pulled some punches, the Robins.
They certainly did.
It's a question of whether they can pull punches now.
Yeah, it's going to be probably the best game of the round. Well, not the best, but one of the best.
There are two key matchups we need to examine and focus. Cruz Leeming and Jordan Abdul, because I imagine they would once again be going with Cruz Leeming at halfback for the Leeds Rhinos. So how does he try and outplay Jordan Abdul?
By watching a fair bit of footage from this season and trying to maybe tweak his playing game slightly, or make sure that he can step up to those big occasions. So we know Cruz Lehman can do that because he has slotted a 1-point field goal this season.
Well, that is true. If I were Hull KR, my main job would be trying to stop Harry Newman from getting any quality ball, because we have seen what Harry Newman can do when given a good run of injury-free football and the ability to open the game up. We saw how he performed at Magic Weekend against Hull FC with the flick pass round the corner for Cruz Leeming to score that try in the corner. And the long-range bursts, we've seen that as well.
Yeah,
if it comes down to goal kicking, then I think Leeds Rhinos have the ultimate advantage over the Robins, as it has been said that Hull KR have the worst conversion rate in Super League.
Wow.
Yeah, even worse than the Leeds Centurions, which is somehow possible.
Wow. But look, like with Reece Martin's boot, they are very safe hands to mine. He's very few this season.
They definitely are. So if they force it into tight court orders where goal kicking becomes important, I think Hull KR might come up short here. I'm going to go Leeds 1-12 at home.
Completely agree with you. Leeds Rhinos 1-12. They've got the slightest edge over the Robins.
Now the following game from there, away from Emerald Headingley, Salford play host to St Helens, and the champions of two have decided to rest a whole host of talent for this game. As we're going to bring up the squad odds for you now, this might take a while because, we're so completely organized and professional with the way we organize ourselves ahead of time.
Oh, yeah. Look, St Helens, they haven't got, they've still got Regan Grace there, so he's going to be fourth. Johnny Lomax is still there. MacArthur Scarsbrook is still there. Joel Thompson's still there. Alex Warmsley's still there. Wellesby's still there. And other than that, I think they're resting a lot of their players, like you mentioned.
Of course, we saw how Catalan did by resting players first up, and that didn't go down so well for them in the second half. This time, it's St. Helens' turn to rest players, and they did the same thing last time they played Salford last year, and that turned into a 12 points to 10 victory for the Red Devils. I don't think they get so lucky this time. Yet, as this time around for the second, as I have now found the squad just about out there. So, as of course, there is no Tommy Akinson. He's been rested, as have Lachlan Coots and Kevin Nagama, Mark Percival. Oh, but Johnny Lomax back for the first time. He's been back for a while playing alongside Lewis Dodd, hasn't he?
Yes. Just being not as involved as what he usually has been.
It's very interesting that they've decided to give 4 debuts for this game. And of course, we all have seen how good the Saints Academy has been, and with some of the players that have come through, including the likes of Jack Wellesby. But these are the 4 players that Christian Wolf has given in debuts to. Jonathan Benson, and from the West Bank Bear, as Shane Martin, a winger who has scored 6 times and kicked 42 goals for the under-19 sides. Lee's East hooker Taylor Pemberton as probably a backup for James Roby, and Joey Lussick, who will be at the club next year. Surprised they haven't really gone with Aaron. Oh no, they have gone with Aaron Smith, if for this occasion, and Reese Umner in the second row from Blackbrook, who has scored 4 tries in 9 matches for the Saint Academy, according to their website, and I completely trust that. So Pemberton, Martin, Sumner, and Benison, as well as the recently re-signed Sam Royal, sticking around for at least another couple of seasons.
Yes. So, and like with Catalans and like Catalans, they can afford to rest players. That's the luxury of being solid in second, and you can't drop down a third, or you can't go on to win the league leader. Sure, that's the beauty of doing that.
It is very much a beauty, and Salford will be looking for something in the final home game of the sealed, and what has been a torrent year for Richard Marshall.
It certainly has been. They've shown glimpses of what they can do, but not enough. They're more inconsistent than consistent.
I think these youngsters will have the opportunity to shine, and I think Jack Wellesby will continue to lead the way for St. Helens at this point in time, because, quite frankly, he's going to be somewhere in the team of the year, whether he's a fullback, centre, or 5'8", that remains to be seen.
Yeah, he'll be there regardless. I can only predictions. I'd love to see Salford get up over St. Helens, because this is a time where Salford could beat the Saints because of all the players they're resting. But you still got Walmsley there, you still got Wellesby there, and still got Reckon Grace and Johnny Lomax. So there's a lot of still experienced players there that they can still override the Red Devils.
I don't see St. Helens putting on a massive score, but I don't see Salford clawing one up over the Saints. I'm going to go St. Helens 1-12.
Well, Salford nearly beat Warrington, which will be a good boost heading into another top team as Saints. I was going to say Salford. I want to tip them for the last time this season. In a 1-12 margin, just good as I can.
Good as you can. Fair enough. Well, we've now got Wakefield Trinity at the Mobile Rocket Stadium hosting Hull FC. What can we say about the black and whites that has not already been covered?
Look, they should have been in the chance to play the playoffs.
It's unfortunate that they were dogged by inconsistencies yet again and some narrow, heartbreaking losses.
Yeah. And yeah, they should have been in the playoffs this year, but they aren't. So it's just pretty much playing for pride.
What's done is done, and I don't think Brett Hodgson can take any of that back. He's been missing Josh Reynolds for long periods. He's missed Jake Connor for long periods, as well as very bad performances in places, especially the week after their massive Hull derby victory over the Robins, and to not back it up against the Castleford Tigers. And it has just gone on since then.
Yeah, it certainly has. They've been on the slide ever since then, like you mentioned.
And I think that slide will continue to happen because there is just no way I can see the Black and Whites pulling one last performance out of the hat. And I think they go to 5 straight losses to finish off the year. I'm going to tip Wakefield winning 1-12. I think there'll be a couple of wet lessons they will take out of that performance against Lee, and they will rectify them against the Black and Whites.
Yeah. Heading into this match, as you previously mentioned, Hull FC have been on the down. Wakefield have been in a way better form. I know they lost narrowly to the Centurions, but Wakefield are the better side. They have been coming on strong for the last, well, not winning every match, but they've been winning more than what they had been at the start of the season. I'm going to say Wakefield 13+.
Well, you're going to go for a big winning margin.
Yep, big winning margin. I just don't see Hull FC putting in a strong fight. Like, they'll be in a fight, but not a very big one.
And the final match of round 25 sees the Wigan Warriors at home to the Catalan Dragons. Can we anticipate that Catalan will be looking to rest more players?
Yes.
This time?
Yes. They certainly will be.
I think you'll find Michael McAlorum will be back, but he'll be taking the spot of Josh Drinkwater or James Maloney because they'll be moving. I think if I was Steve McNamara and I've got Sam Tompkins, Michael McAlorum, Lange, and Vare to come back, I'd actually be moving Laguerre to the flanks. I'd be keeping Romain Franco in and keeping Fouad Yaha out just to be on the safe side. Morg and Rouge, I'd be moving them into the halves, as with Tompkins coming back. Maloney and Drinkwater both get a week off to prepare for the semi-finals. And on the second rows, I bring back Mike McMeekin over Matt Whitley, and I keep Corentin LeCam in there, and I give all the youngsters that made their first appearance, I give them another shot.
I completely agree. They've got nothing to lose, and the more rested players you have heading into the playoffs will pay a lot of...
A 2-week turnaround will be a big thing for the Catalan Dragons because they know if they win their semi-final clash against the 4th or the 5th eliminator, which means they would either, at this stage, they would either be facing the Wigan Warriors or Hull KR as it currently stands. That would place them one match away from the grand final at Old Trafford.
Yeah, no. I'd say Catalans will do exactly what you mentioned. Wigan, so as inconsistent, they've also been inconsistent this season, but still managed to be in the playoffs.
Despite some hideous scorelines, such as 48-0 when they travelled to France in the earlier stages of the campaign.
Yes.
Where Zach Hardegger gets red carded for running a bit of the biff.
Yeah, it was a very blowout scoreline.
And then we see their match against Warrington about 5 to 6 weeks later, where Jake Mamo just scores long-range intercept try after long-range intercept try in a 40-14 routing at the DW before rivals round, where Saint absolutely steamrolled them 26 points to 2 in the second grand final rematch.
Yeah, so Wigan haven't had the best of runs this season, but with Catalans resting all their players, I think they could afford to lose this match and they will pay off or overcome the playoffs. But who knows? All the youngsters could pull a trick or two out of the bag and they could still win this match.
So what's your final say?
I'm going to say Catalans 1-12.
Well, I'll also say Catalan 1-12. But before we go anywhere for the week, of course, we do have to talk about the Betfred Championship because their playoffs will be coming up in conjunction with those in the Betfred Super League, and the race for the final spot in the top 6 is beginning to heat up at this point. I know we haven't covered much of the Betfred Championship because we've been flat out trying to cover 2 major league comps and little bits and pieces in between when we haven't been doing that. But this is what we know is certain. But Oldham and Swinton will be relegated at the end of the year. Sheffield, very lucky to be 8 points clear of the drop. And your top 6 at this stage, Toulouse Olympique, no surprises there.
No.
Featherstone, the rebranded Halifax Panthers, the Bradford Bulls, former 3-time Super League champions, Batley, and the London Broncos. It was only a couple of months away before their transition to a part-time rugby league squad. But there is still one team. Whitehaven Football Club could still cause an upset if they win and London lose. But in order to win, they have to beat Bradford at Oddsall to be even a chance of finishing in the top 6.
So it's still coming down to the wire in the championship of all to see who makes the playoffs and who doesn't.
The top 5 are locked away. Toulouse, Featherstone, they'll get weeks off, leaving Halifax, Bradford, Batley, and either London or Whitehaven to fight it out for a spot in the semi-finals.
Well, I hope it's London because, as we all know, they're going to be part-time club next season. But you just don't know what's going to happen.
I think it's been reading these results. I haven't seen much of the highlights, to be quite honest with you. But having seen Bradford, who I was told 4 years ago was on the brink of financial ruin, now in the top 6 of the championship, and could potentially be 160 minutes or so, plus, away from returning to Super League for the first time in 8 years.
It'll be quite a comeback story if they do manage to do that.
But in order to do that, they first would have to dispatch a Batley and then do the hardest job of them all and knock off Toulouse Olympique in the south of France for a shot at the £1 million game.
It'll be very, very interesting to see.
I think that will be a very big ask for what Bradford has done this season.
It would be. But whether or not they can pull it off, it will be a miracle if they do pull it off. Don't get me wrong.
I definitely think it will be a miracle, but I think everyone will be saying the smart money is on Toulouse Olympique. I mean, you just have to see the way they recruited heading into the season, picking up the likes of Dominique Peyrou and Joseph Paula, and Remy Castille. Remy Castille would have to have been the biggest signing Toulouse could pull off ahead of this year's championship.
It certainly has been, and it's paid very, very well for him, and the biggest signing has lived up to expectations, you could say.
And the fact that Toulouse have not lost a game all year of the games that they have been allowed to play against the full-time sides, because part-time clubs are not allowed to travel to France because of ongoing restrictions to a certain thing we're not going to talk about lest we get hunted down. But even in the games that they have played, and they have been pushed, sort of. I mean, you look at what Toulouse has done. They've literally been outscoring all of their opponents on a regular basis. The only time they have really been challenged was back in round 3 against Halifax in a 44-34 high-scoring affair.
Yeah, that is a very high-scoring affair, and they definitely did get pushed in that game from that scoreline. Wow.
That is crazy. That is the only time Halifax have won a game in a 1-12 margin. Other times they've been blowing oppositions off the park or being awarded wins because London refused to travel to the south of France.
That is unbelievable. That what they've shown this season is what they could bring him to the Super League next season.
And it'd be a good reward for French Rugby League. It keeps coming back to French Rugby League because it is. It would be amazing to have next season. And if Catalan are the Super League champions on that timeline, all of a sudden you've got this magnificent derby game where you got the newest Frenchmen in Super League against the reigning champions, either at the Stade Ernest Wallon or the Stade Gilbert Brutus, or even playing the game in Paris in a major showpiece for French Rugby League in France's north.
Yeah, that'll be fantastic to see. And if both teams continue to play well into the Super League season next year, we could maybe have a French derby at Old Trafford for the grand final next year.
I think that might be a little bit audacious saying French derby, but we'll just have to see how that all goes out. All right. Just on the key games, Bradford versus Whitehaven, York versus London. If you want to hear more about the championship, leave your thoughts in the comments section down below, and we'll do our very best to maybe cover the championship or key games next season, God willing. Now, your predictions: Bradford or Whitehaven?
Bradford 1-12.
So you're going Bradford 1-12 at the final home game of the year. And finally, York playing London at the LNER Community Centre in York. Or stadium, sorry, not centre. York or London?
I'm going to say London just because it's the last time it's going to be a full-time squad together, and hopefully they do very, very well.
Well, there you have it. Bradford and London to secure their places in the top 6 of the championship. And with that, that is full time from us.
No, it's not.
Oh.
We missed the game. We missed Huddersfield Lee Centurions.
Oh, yes, we did. My bad. I pulled the trigger early. I was going to give myself an early mark. Yes. Huddersfield versus the Lee Centurions at the John Smith Stadium.
Yes. So Huddersfield, they did cause an upset victory over Catlands, and Lee did manage to win. So, I mean, it's nothing to play for this match. We all, they're just playing for pride. It's the Centurions' very last game in the Super League for don't know how long. Maybe for a year, maybe 2, etc.
It took them 4 years to come back into Super League.
True, but they got a bit easier coming back into the Super League this season.
Rather than earning it.
Yes, that is true. I'm going to say it again. I'm just going to say Lee Centurions to go back-to-back wins for the first time this season and for the last time in the Super League.
No, I don't see it that way. Huddersfield built 13 plus, I think. And they'll take a lot of confidence out of that win against Catalan. And I think that Ian Watson will be definitely pulling things apart and trying to revamp the Huddersfield attack going into 2022. And after jumping the gun for about 5 minutes, now it is full time from us for the week. If you like either this debrief or the NRL debrief we did yesterday, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, turn the notification bell on, and share it with your friends so you never miss a week of rugby league action. Good luck to all those who got some do-or-die clashes ahead in both Super League and the Betfred Championship, and hope you're looking forward to a very interesting playoff series. Along with Mark Hendry, I'm Connor Marcellus, and you have been listening to the Sideline Chat podcast. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Catch us all next week.